And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Good afternoon. I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist John Cowen with your Alaska Marine Forecast. Let's start off taking a look at sea ice across the northern portions of the state. You can see we still have some nearshore ice that's slowly melting from the coastline, but otherwise that pack ice still remaining in place across the Beaufort Sea. Most of the Chukchi fairly open at this point. Some slow melting over the next few days is expected, but really not a whole lot of change as far as our ice coverage. Taking a look at our weather for the next couple of days, we have low pressure moving into the Gulf of Alaska for Friday, and that's going to bring moisture in across much of the Gulf Coast. Winds staying fairly light across the Panhandle and the offshore areas there, but starting to pick up across Kodiak Island and the eastern Aleutians as we have a cold front bringing some cooler temperatures and some stronger winds into the area. For Saturday, that low pressure continues to churn out here in the Gulf with the stronger winds persisting across Kodiak Island and the eastern Aleutians. Some stronger winds also starting to occur in the offshore areas of the northern Gulf Coast. Taking a look at our marine forecast for Friday, again, really not a whole lot going on winds and seas-wise for Friday. 10 to 15 knots is what we can expect for most areas on Friday, coming up to about 25 knots in the offshore areas near Yakutat, but winds generally out of the south to southwest and seas in the offshore areas around 5 feet. For Saturday, though, we do start to see an increase in the winds as the low pressure continues to strengthen and really bring in those east winds, so we can expect 20 to 30 knots in the offshore areas near Yakutat. Seas coming up to 8 feet in that area, but otherwise about 20 to 25 knots out of the southeast. Seas up to about 8 to 9 feet, and then for the inshore areas, we're looking at about 3 to 5 feet with winds out of the southeast around 15 to 20 knots. For Friday across Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound, really not a whole lot going on. We do have some stronger winds starting to pick up out of the northeast, southwest to Homer. Winds up to 30 knots out of the west with seas up to 8 feet, but otherwise we're looking at variable winds in that 10 to 15 knot range and about 2 to 3 foot seas. For Saturday, the stronger winds in the offshore areas again showing up about 30 knots out of the east, kicking seas up to about 9 feet in the offshore areas, but again, inshore areas of Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound again around 10 knots with somewhat variable winds. Generally going to be out of the north to northwest though. For Friday, for the Kodiak Island and eastern Aleutians area, again, this is going to be where our stronger winds are over the next couple of days, and this is going to be fairly consistent. So about 20 to 25 knots, even up to 30 knots in some of these offshore areas, kicking seas up to about 7 feet. And same story for Saturday, same sea state with those persistent northwest winds. Moving farther west, we have a high pressure dome that's parked over the western and central Aleutians, so really not a whole lot going on out here. You can see winds are somewhat variable. Generally west of Adak, we're going to be looking at south winds around 15 to 20 knots with about 4 to 5 foot seas, and then to the east of that area, again that 15 knot range generally out of the west to northwest. And Saturday, same story, that high pressure really isn't going anywhere, so very calm conditions for much of the Aleutians. And then moving up into the the eastern Bering Sea, we're looking at about 20 knot winds out of the northwest. So some stronger winds in these near shore areas. Seas up to about 4 to 5 feet. Same story for Saturday. Really not a whole lot of change, maybe a little bit of a weakening trend as that high pressure continues to build over the eastern Bering Sea. And then finally across the northern coastline, looking at about 15 to 20 knots out of the north to northeast, and seas up to about 3 to 4 feet for most of those areas. And similar story for Friday with winds turning slightly more easterly. And that'll wrap up our marine forecast. I'm meteorologist John Cowen.